went together for a short distance, until they came to a place where 6 roads diverged. There they separated, and each was to go his own way. But before parting, they agreed to meet in 2 years at that same place, and to return to their father together. On the day appointed, they all met, and went home to their father, who asked each one what he had learned. The oldest said that he was a shipbuilder, and could build ships which could propel themselves. The next to the oldest had gone to sea, and had become a helmsman, and could steer a ship over land as well as over water. The next to the oldest had only learned to listen, but that he could do so well that when he was in one country he could hear what was going on in another. The next to the youngest had become a sharpshooter, and he never missed his aim. The next to the youngest had learned how to climb, and he could climb up a wall like a fly, and no cliff was too steep for him to scale. When the father had heard what the 5 brothers could do, he said that it was all very well, but that he had expected something more from them. Then he asked what the youngest had learned. He had great hopes in him, for he was his favorite. The youngest was glad that it was at last his turn to speak, and he answered joyously that he had become a master thief. When his father heard that, he was furious, and exclaimed, "Shame on you, for the disgrace that you have brought upon me and the whole family." Now it happened that at this very time the king's beautiful young daughter had been stolen by a wicked wizard, and the king promised the half of his realm and the princess in marriage to the one who should free her from the wizard. When the 6 brothers heard this, they resolved to try their luck. The shipbuilder built a ship that went of itself. The helmsman steered it over land and sea. The listener listened carefully, and at last said that he heard the wizard inside a mountain of glass. Thither they sailed. The climber quickly climbed to the top of the mountain, and saw the ugly wizard lying asleep with his head in the lap of the princess. Then he hurried down, and, taking the little master thief on his back, went into the inside of the mountain. The thief stole the princess so cleverly from under the head of the wizard that he did not know awesome story. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm not interrupting, actually. It's the end of the story, but dude, that is so cool. Okay, I'm sorry. In between each of them, I'm going to do a little 30-second, or maybe 20-second interval of silence, just in case I need to, add some of them in later on. So I'm going to start a little 30-second thing now. Alright, that was only 20 seconds, but that should be enough. um, I'm impatient. I want to get to the next story. That one was cool. The next story is called Peter Ox. There were once upon a time a peasant and his wife who lived in Jutland, but they had no children. They often lamented that fact, and were also sad to think that they had no relatives to whom to leave their farm and other possessions. So the years went by, and they became richer and richer, but there was no one to inherit their wealth. One year the farmer bought a fine calf, which he called Peter, and it was really the finest animal that he had ever seen, and so clever that it seemed to understand nearly everything that one said to it. It was also very amusing and affectionate, so that the man and his wife soon became as fond of it as if it were their own child. One day the farmer said to his wife, "Perhaps the sexton of our church could teach Peter to talk. Then we could not do better than to adopt him as our child, and he could then inherit all our property." "Who can tell," said the wife. "Our sexton is a learned man, and perhaps he might be able to teach Peter to talk, for Peter is really very clever. Suppose you ask the sexton." So the farmer went over to the sexton and asked him whether he did not believe he could teach his calf to talk, because he wanted to make the animal his heir. The crafty sexton looked around to see that no one was near, and then said that he thought he could do so. "Only you must not tell anybody," he said, "for it must be a great secret, and the minister in particular must not know anything about it, or I might get into serious trouble, as such things are strictly forbidden. Moreover, it will cost a pretty penny, as we shall need rare and expensive books." The farmer said that he did not mind, and handing the sexton $100 to buy books with, promised not to say a word about the arrangement to anyone. That evening the man brought his calf to the sexton, who promised to do his best. In about a week the farmer returned to see how his calf was getting on, but the sexton said that he did not dare let him see the animal, else Peter might become homesick and forget all that he had already learned. Otherwise he was making good progress, but the farmer must pay another $100, as Peter needed more books. The peasant happened to have the money with him, so he gave it to the sexton and went home filled with hope and pleasant anticipations. At the end of another week the man again went to make inquiry about Peter, and was told by the sexton that he was doing fairly well. "Can he say anything?" asked the farmer. "Yes, he Yes, father, go at once to see him, for I feel sure that it can be no other than our dear Peter. But take along plenty of money, for he probably needs it now that he has become a merchant. On the following morning, the farmer put a bag of money on his shoulder, took with him some provisions, and started to walk to the town where the merchant lived. Early next morning he arrived there, and went straight to the merchant's house. The servants told the man that the merchant had not gotten up yet. That does not make any difference, for I am his father. Just take me up to his room. So they took the peasant up to the bedroom, where the merchant lay sound asleep, and as soon as the father saw him, he recognized Peter. There were the same thick neck and broad forehead, and the same red hair, but that otherwise he looked just like a human being. Then the man went to him and bade him good morning, and said, "Well, Peter, you caused your mother and me great sorrow when you ran away as soon as you had learned something, but get up now, and let me have a look at you and talk with you." The merchant, of course, believed that he had a crazy man to deal with, so he thought it best to be careful. "Yes, I will get up," he said, and jumped out of bed into his clothes as quickly as possible. "Ah," said the peasant, "now I see what a wise man our sexton was. He has brought it to pass that you are like any other man. If I were not absolutely certain of it, I should never dream that you were the calf of our red cow. Will you come home with me?" The merchant said that he could not, as he had to attend to his business, but you could take over my farm, and I would retire. Nevertheless, if you prefer to stay in business, I am willing. Do you need any money? "Well," said the merchant, "a man can always find use for money in this business." "I thought so," said the farmer, "and besides, you had nothing to start with, so I have brought you some money." And with that, he poured out on the table the bright dollars that covered it entirely. When the merchant saw what kind of a man his new-found acquaintance was, he chatted with him in a very friendly manner, and begged him to remain with him for a few days. "Yes, indeed," said the farmer, "but you must be sure to call me father from now on." "But I have neither father nor mother living," answered Peter Ox. "That I know perfectly well," the peasant replied, "for I sold your real father at Copenhagen last Michaelmas, and your mother died while calving. But my wife and I have adopted you as our child, and you will be our heir, so you must call me father." The merchant gladly agreed to that, and kept the bag of money, and before leaving town, the farmer made his will and bequeathed all his possessions to Peter after his death. Then the man went home and told his wife the whole story, and she was delighted to learn that the merchant, Peter Ox, was really their own calf. "Now you must go straight over to the sexton and tell him what has happened," she said, "and be sure to refund to him the $100 that he paid out of his own pocket for Peter, for he has earned all that we have paid him, because of the joy that he has caused us in giving us such a son and heir." Her husband was of the same opinion, and went to call on the sexton, whom he thanked many times for his kindness, and to whom he also gave $200. Then the farmer sold his farm, and he and his wife moved into the town where the merchant was, and lived with him happily until their death. Oh, that's kind of sweet. I I well, I guess ignorance is bliss.